South Park is a show notoriously not made for kids, so using my massive brain and basic business economics, this means there is a gap in the market for someone to fill. That gap, of course, being child-friendly episodes of South Park. And because no one else has been doing it, I am. For over a year now, I've been making custom episodes for all of the kids whose parents won't let them watch the show, but that kinda gets old quick. So this time there's a twist. This episode will still be for kids, but instead of giving them the good life lessons like I have in the past, such as don't be racist, don't be sexist, and don't piss off Kanye West, this time I'm going to be doing the opposite. I'm going to be giving them the worst possible advice, because I reckon it'll be funny. So what do parents tell their kids not to do? I came up with a small list, including not talking to strangers online, not swearing, not doing drugs, not lying, but there was one that really stood out to me. Never get into a strange white van that says free candy on the side being driven by a creepy old man. A true classic in the handbook of how to not get abducted as a child. I'm sure you can see where this is going. As always, I'm going to be doing everything inside of Blender, cause it's powerful, free, and the only 3D software that I know how to use. For those of you wondering why I don't just make it in 2D and make it look like the actual show, well, I tried that and accidentally made it look so close to the original that I got a personalized copyright claim from Paramount Studios. And since at this point I'm scared of a lawsuit, I'm going to stick to my old 3D style. Let's start with some characters. All we'll need today is Cartman, Stan, Kyle, and Kenny. Oh, and also Diddy. He's going to be driving the van. You know, just felt right. To make the character model for Diddy, I first found and downloaded a complete set of the textures the South Park artists used to make their characters. There were about 10 variations of each colour, each with a slightly different paper texture left over from when the show started out being made with stop motion. I could then bring the textures into my editing software as images and use the masking tool to cut out the right shapes. Then it was just a case of layering loads of different textures on top of each other until we have our little oily friend. And to go with him, I also made this bottle of baby oil. For no apparent reason. We'll also need a suspicious white van, so here's a clip of me modelling it. And here's a clip of me realising I am terrible at modelling anything that isn't just a few basic shapes, and instead downloading a model made by someone far more skilled than me. I did add the free candy sign and get rid of the windows though. You can really tell just how much I care about ruining random kids' lives. Look at our little boy sitting at the wheel, he looks right at home. The South Park kids' voices are pretty strange sounding if you're not used to them. Some of the jokes they make only really work because of the absurd nature of it all. But this does create an issue if you're trying to do a naughty and use AI to clone their voices. AI voice software is trained to make voices sound as natural as possible, so trying to recreate perhaps the most unnatural sounding voices on TV seems to give good old Bob, your artificial intelligence assistant, a full-on aneurysm. It's like giving a pen to a monkey and expecting it to write Shakespeare. But if you just do enough iterations of each line, I sometimes manage to get something that sounds alright. Sometimes.
Yeah? Well, you should go back to the ghetto where you belong.
Let's do a good old test to see what my new voice for Sean Diddy Combs sounds like.
Hey kids, you should subscribe to the MPT channel because if you do, I will personally deliver you a bottle of baby oil and we can use it right there on the spot.
After that whole ordeal, I can go back to my safe space in Blender, far away from any demonic renderings of Cartman's voice. Time to make a street. I pulled up a picture of the South Park town and started roughly copying each of the buildings. These will mostly be out of focus in the background, so they don't matter too much. I also made a couple houses for the other side of the street, and then the road itself. The final thing to add was the iconic mountains in the background. I kept most of this stuff hidden so that my graphics card wasn't having to render all that extra geometry. So this is what I'd be looking at while I was animating, and this is what the final render would look like. The fact they managed to make a whole 20-minute episode of South Park in just 6 days kind of amazes me. Apparently there's a team of roughly 70 people who work on the show, but even with that, it is a miracle they get it done on time. Each episode has to go through brainstorming, scripting, recording, editing, art design, animation, lip sync, and sound. And then on top of all of that, they used to have to deal with censorship laws on live broadcasts, which just makes it even wilder. I mention all of this to say I'm sorry for being lazy and only making a 2-minute episode once every few months. I promise I'm doing other film stuff in between. If you want to see any of it, check out my films channel, link in the description. Now it's time to start animating this thing, making sure to keep in mind that it will all be worth it in the end to betray the innocent children. I counted the exact number of frames for each line of the script and marked it out on my timeline to make sure I didn't miss any shots. Then I just had to set up the camera, get the characters in position, adjust the lighting and animate the shot, and then do it 35 more times. I always like to add these small rim lights using 50-watt points behind the characters. You can see the difference with them on and off. It helps to set the characters apart from the background slightly, keeping the whole thing feeling at least a little bit professional. I decided to return to animating on 2s for this one, just to make it feel similarly choppy to the original. This means that the characters are moving every second frame, aka at 12 frames per second. I need to make an interior for the van completely stocked full of candy, so I quickly downloaded a couple models of CG Trader. I then added some pink shelves and a couple bottles of baby oil for good measure. You really just never know when you're going to need them. I wrapped up the animation process with some nice abusive lines from Cartman, and then I could hit render and wait half a day for all of it to be done. I'm so glad I animated this in 12 frames a second instead of 24, because it would have taken forever to render otherwise. I brought those files into my editing software, lined them up with the audio, and then started the long process of animating their mouths. Because of the way I animate these characters in Blender, it isn't really realistic to have the mouths actually be part of the models, which means I have to do all of the syncing and tracking manually, frame by frame. Just do that for all 1600 frames, add some sound effects, and it's finished. So here is the new evil edition of South Park for Kids. I hope you enjoy. But just before I put it on, please subscribe.
And then I ran up to Butters, and I'm all like, your wiener is tiny. Dude, that's hilarious. I know, right? And then he started crying, saying that it wasn't, and that he was hung like a horse.
Oh my god, Butters is so lame.
But you won't believe what happened next. His dad walks in, and... What the fuck is this? Dude, it says free candy.
Hey boys, how would you like some free candy? There's loads of it in the back.
Whoa, really? You mean like the whole van is full of candy?
Yep, just hop right in and we'll have some good times.
Cartman, you know what they say at school. You should never get into a strange white van being driven by a pedophile.
Yeah, but are you really gonna take advice from Garrison? Dude, he is off his rocker. I don't care what you say, Kyle. I want candy.
You are so fat, Cartman.
Hey, look, he wasn't lying. Everyone get in.
Ah, fine, I'll come as well.
Wow, I really just love kids.
Oh my god, guys, this stuff is so good. Yeah, Kyle, you should have some. No, he's not allowed any. It's all mine.
I don't even want any anyway. I don't trust that guy.
Oh, shut up, Kenny. Go back to the ghetto where you belong.